Hi, it's Dr. Johnson again, and in this video I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how teachers create units and lesson plans based off of standards. So thus the title, From Standards to Curriculum. Remember, standards aren't necessarily curriculum. They are statements of what students should know or be able to do. But how teachers decide to do that is completely up to us, and that is the curriculum side of things. So for this example, I'm going to be using the Hawaii standards, of course. And when I first look at them, I'm not going to use the inquiry standards. These are skills, and I'll be using those as I'm working with my students, but not going to use them to help me plan or develop. And I'm really not going to use the content anchor standards very much because those are too big and broad. What I really want to focus in on are maybe the specific themes and the specific content standards within a theme. So I've chosen for us to look at here a second grade theme. This is theme 4, Together We Can. And I'm looking down. It looks like it has some economic, decision making, some geography, some civics, and some more economic stuff on there. And as I look over this kind of whole sheet, you might say, some things stand out. The first thing that stands out is this statement, this compelling question: how do we solve problems? That's kind of intriguing to me because I also noticed down here at the bottom, develop local solutions to various community problems that we're talking about. Maybe some problems the students are really familiar with. So I think this might be a really good opportunity to do an entire unit on problems in our community. So as a teacher, once I get maybe a big picture idea for a unit, now I'm going to do some brainstorming. And my brainstorming might start with a specific content standard here, developing logical solutions to various community problems. Well, I know as a teacher, before I can even do that, I'm going to have to get my students thinking about what the problems are. So I might start off with a KWL chart, what you know, what you want to know, what you've learned. And I might make the title of that chart, what problems do we have in our community? What problems do you know that we have in our community? And I might do this with my students, and they might give me all sorts of different things that we could talk about. They might say, hey, I want to ride my bike, but there's really nowhere to ride. My parents just lost their job because of the pandemic. In other words, they're just, listing what problems do we know? Get those out there. The grass at the park, they may, complain that the grass is not very good. Who knows? Who knows what problems your students might come up with? But I think it would be a fun place to start. And based off of that, we might want to talk about, okay, out of all of these problems that we already know about, what's the one we want to know more about? What's the one we want to get familiar? And maybe they are really interested in this idea of being out of work and maybe homelessness and food. Food as a community problem. They maybe have participated in one of the food giveaway events that have been prevalent during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think let's make our unit about that. And as I'm thinking about that now, we've just done one lesson. This is obviously going to take more than the time I did with you. That whole process probably would have taken me at least 20 or 30 minutes to work students through talking about the problems they know. But I've done a little bit of that content standard, developing logical solutions to various community problems. We have a little bit more to do. For instance, we might say, hey, what are some solutions to hunger in our community? And we might talk about, we could make donations to the food bank, or we could grow our own garden. Maybe our school even has a school garden already in existence. It's a very common thing for schools to have. And we might talk about, hey, these are some different things we might think about. These might be a solution to help with the hunger problem in our community. But there are some other things, because I noticed that this standard also talks about processes, rules, and laws. So maybe we might take a field trip to a local farm, and we might talk to the local farmer about, what's the process that they have to go through in growing this food. That might help us understand if we want to grow our own garden at our school, what's the process we have to go through? Or are there specific laws or rules that we would have to follow in growing our food and donating the food? So we might need to call the food bank and say, hey, if we started our school garden, could we grow bananas and donate bananas to the food bank? Would that be allowed, or would we have to have certain hygiene or sanitation things? We want to find all of those out. So here is another great opportunity, and if I was doing a field trip, that's going to take probably a half a day and combined with other activities we might do surrounding that. So, and then, maybe I saw this content standard 24162, which was there. Investigate how people in your community rely on local and global resources to meet their daily needs. So I might say, I could do that by taking my kids to the supermarket. We might run to Tamura's or Foodland, and we might investigate that and have someone at Foodland or Tamura's talk to us maybe about where do they get their food from, how do they decide what produce they're going to keep in stock, and where do they get their produce from, how much of it comes from local farmers versus coming shipped in by Madsen. We might do a survey. Maybe we're going to send a survey home. We decide, hey, we're going to grow our own food. We might send a survey home about what the favorite fruits and vegetables are, and have all the students survey their families, so we knew if we were going to grow food, we would want food that people would want, and that would help us decide what's in our garden. I couldn't find a fruit survey or a vegetable survey chart with Hawaiian vegetables on there or fruits, so that's what I throw in there. Another interesting thing is, shipping. This one's talking about local and global resources. So maybe we get a hold of someone from Madsen, and they're able to come and talk to us about what kind of things that they ship in, and talk to us about the type of things that are shipped to the island instead of things that are grown on the island. Something that might be interesting to do. So can you see how I'm just brainstorming here? Lots of ideas, and a lot of these are big ideas. These are things that are going to take at least an hour or 2 hours, or even field trips are going to take a half a day or more. But I'm just brainstorming as I look at these different content standards. By the way, when I was looking at that content standard on how people rely on local and global resources, I saw this, looking at global interconnections. And it's a geography anchor standard too, and that got me thinking, if I was talking to someone from Madsen and they were able to come up and talk to my students about shipping and how shipping happens to the island, that would be really cool. We could put a map up on the wall and talk about the different shipping routes that they have to and from Hawaii, and maybe to and from the different parts of the island. That might be really cool to talk about. Maybe even the Madsen folks would arrange for us to adopt one of their shipping ships, and we could maybe video conference, because I know they have internet on those ships. And wouldn't it be kind of cool to talk to the captain or someone on that ship as they're traveling across the Pacific? And my students could do lots of activities related to that. And that would certainly tie into that geography anchor standard. But can you see how I'm just brainstorming? And these are just things that you just think about. And then you have to go back and figure out what to do after that point. And maybe we decide, wait, I'm going to brainstorm some more, because I just thought, what if we, instead of doing the garden, we're going to do food donations? We're going to have a food drive. Well, wouldn't that tie in really well with this determining costs and benefits of saving money? Because we could set up a giant container and we could save money over 4 months worth of time, a penny at a time, a quarter at a time. And wouldn't that be cool to open up at the end and certainly see how saving money would benefit and what we could buy with that money to donate to the food bank? Anyway, you get all of these ideas in your head like I do, and I probably could list 20, 30 more. But what we've done is we've taken the content standards, we've brainstormed ideas of actionable things we could do in the classroom with our students, and hopefully then you have a curriculum that you can customize for your class. Now, all of the ideas that I've talked to about here that I brainstormed may or may not work for your class, but the idea is to get those thoughts out there, figure out what's going to be best for your class, and then you can make a decision based off of all of those ideas to implement in either a single lesson, like a KWL lesson, or you could implement it into an entire unit. So that's a little bit of my background on what I would do as a teacher, and maybe some things you might think about how teachers take the standards and make it into an actionable curriculum.